Hey guys, it's SJ. I hope you're well. If you're brand new to my channel, my name is SJ. I have 3 children. They are 9, 6 and 3 and I practice gentle parenting and positive discipline at home. So I thought I would put together 4 tips on how to get your children to listen without yelling. So it's not because I think as parents we can't yell, you know, sometimes kids need us to raise our voices when something's really important, and I don't think we should feel guilty about occasionally doing that. However, I do think that sometimes it's just so annoying when it feels like they don't listen unless we do that. So I do think that we've trained our children to think that anything else, when we tell them something in a nice way with a smile on our face, it just becomes background noise, and it's like, well, that's not important yet, I'll just ignore her until she gets to her big loud yelly voice. And then it's just, why should that have to be on our shoulders? Why should we just have to raise our voices and get frustrated before anything gets done, particularly before dinner, I find, because then I feel like I sit down for dinner with the kids and I'm already in like an annoyed mood, and then sometimes I use the dinner time to lecture them about how they've made me feel. So then it's just the whole spiral of the evening goes. So yes, let me know if you relate in the comment section below. So I thought I would put together these 4 tips. They've all worked for me. They're stuff that I've tried from various books. I'll link my book recommendations below. And as I said, just I do believe so much more in having things up our sleeves that we practice that become new habits, so that cooperation is done in a really positive way. So these are my 4 tips. If you would like more tips and thoughts on positive discipline and gentle parenting, please do hit subscribe. It just means that every time you log onto YouTube, it will pop up when there is a new video from me. So the first tip that works so well for me is to use single word reminders. So often it's things like, put your coat on, get your shoes, and we're barking these orders at our children, like, be nice to your brother. And it just goes in one ear out the other. And if they're not listening, what we start to do, which I find so funny because I recognise it myself so much, is start layering these consequences. If you don't put your shoes on now, we're going to be late for school. Do the kids care? Not really. If we're late for school, your teacher's going to be cross with you. Probably not. Like, and it just goes on, and we end up adding all these extra consequences on top of them putting their shoes on, which is such a simple thing, and it's just background noise to them, and all we're doing is working ourselves up. So I found this technique in this amazing book, How to Listen So Kids Will Talk and Talk So Kids Will Listen, and it was the first kind of, I guess, gentle parenting book that I read, and I was just in love with the whole thing. It was very much stuff that I already did, but some of it I was learning. And the single words, so literally in a calm, gentle voice, you just say shoes, shoes, and you keep repeating the same word, or you just say share, share, and you say it calm and gently and kind of repeating it, but you're not escalating the situation. And I really find it works because the children aren't being naughty, not listening. Often they're just distracted, you know, they're in their own little world, and it really gets them to do the task probably in the same amount of time. So leave yourself that time for putting the shoes on in the morning, give yourself the 25 minutes, but it doesn't escalate into the yelling. The second thing is positive options. So instead of saying you can't watch TV anymore or turn the TV off, it's time to go to school, you're sort of giving them the negative, and then you're going to invite the whinging and then not wanting to listen. So think about how to tell them what they can do rather than what they can't. So you can go outside now, the garden's all set up for you, or you can go and grab your bag now, I've put a really yummy lunch in there for you today. So you can do this. And I also like to add in what I call a kind comment. So I sort of try to think, what can I say that's really kind at the end? So like, you can put your coat on now, it's all really warm and snuggly for you because it's chilly outside. And I feel like that makes them feel extra loved. If you think about what not listening is and where it comes from, it's like defiant behaviour, isn't it? And defiant behaviour occurs when you feel controlled, when you feel out of power. So somebody telling you, like, I would be the same. If I was like just settling down to watch Kardashians and someone was like, you can't watch the Kardashians, then I would be looking at the person who told me that I couldn't to replace it with a positive. Well, what can I do? You just told me not to do this, and it makes you feel annoyed with them and angry, and then you act in a defiant way. So just think about sometimes the language we're using is such a simple flip into a positive, and it negates the need for them to not listen and to push back at you, because you've given them a positive, you've given them something lovely that you're giving them. So it's a really good one. It takes a little bit of practice. So have a practice over the next couple of days and let me know how you get on with it. The next one is such a beautiful one, and it is to use time in instead of time out. Oh, and it's just such a simple flip. But yeah, as soon as our children start to push back at us, often we go, right, time out, and we push them away at that point, and we discipline at that point, which means we punish, really. Time out, I think, is the worst thing you can do. Never worked for me, and I don't like it at all. So I use the time in instead. If your child isn't listening to you, think, am I actually listening to them? What is the feeling behind this? All behaviour is rooted in a feeling, and often we don't like to go there because it's a negative feeling. Sometimes it's a negative feeling we have created, so they feel angry because we've been bossy, we've been controlling them a little bit, we're telling them to do something they maybe don't want to do, maybe they're anxious about the thing we're trying to get them to do, so they're pretending not to want to do it or not to listen to us. I often have this not listening if we're off to a club, you know, swimming club or something. They always get really anxious about going off to organised clubs. So think, am I listening? And think about your child at that point. The time in method is, okay, let's give them a nourishment of, say, 2 minutes down on their level, not speaking, not giving them, not layering on top, just going down, being quiet, using physical touch, putting a reassuring rub on their shoulder, or just sitting quietly next to them, and you're really going to draw back their cooperation. So if you think about them, sometimes I think about them, you know, imagine if it was just a really frightened, angry cat. I wouldn't just go towards it yelling and grab it and say, well, you are doing it. You know, you would think, okay, I need to be quiet, I need to be calm, I need to gain this animal's trust again, because they're frightened, and think about them as a little sort of frightened kitten. If it helps me. I know this is really, really weird. I'm not a psychologist, as you can tell, but I think thinking of it and reframing it as the time in and this nourishment hit of love and understanding and listening to them and their needs is going to ultimately break the back of them then wanting to listen and cooperate to you and what you're asking them to do. And the last one is a really simple technique, and it is to offer choices. So children all through their lives, from as soon as they get that independence thought at around 2, will always feel a need to assert their control and their power, and they're often living a life, you know, it must be miserable to be a 6-year-old sometimes, to be honest, because you're told what to do, when to do it. You're in a classroom with 30 other people that you need to kind of go around and behave, and suppress a bit of your playfulness. You know, it is difficult to be a child these days, difficult to be a mum. So think about choices, and that's why choices are so important. And if we're giving all the little choices, they're going to feel more in control of their environment. It means that when they're getting to a point where they don't have a choice and they have to listen and do as you're telling them, like it is bedtime now, there are boundaries, you must eat all your vegetables, then they will be more likely to listen and cooperate. And I 100% know that this works from trying it. So think all the time, what little decisions and choices can I give them? Examples when I find it hard to get my children to listen, it's mainly going to school in the morning and getting to the dinner table. They're fine once they're at the dinner table, but getting them there sometimes is like longer than I imagine. So it's things like, shall we put our shoes or our jacket on first? Which coat would you like to wear today, if they have a couple of coats? Would you like mummy to carry your bag to the car for you, or do you want to put it on your back? So you're giving them all of these choices. So at the point where they are going off to school and maybe they're thinking, oh, they're in a moment of change or transition, and their listening goes because they're feeling something, which is maybe a little bit of school anxiety or a bit of sadness at leaving you, you're giving them all these choices and you're empowering them, and then the listening just comes along with it because it's a choice, not a telling. And so the listening comes because they're being offered a choice, and who doesn't want to make a decision? We all like that type of power, rather than the listening having to come from following a command. So I hope those made sense. I hope I didn't talk too long. I really wanted to give examples as well as the tip. These are 4 things that I think really work for me and how to get my kids to listen without yelling. There's different methods there's different ways of doing this. These are things that I really like because I feel like they're gentle and I feel like they're avoiding conflict. As I said, I don't believe that yelling is massively going to damage our children, as long as it's only when we really need it. We need to reserve it almost for when it's something really important, but you never ever can solve anger with anger. Like, that just doesn't get cooperation. It might create them following your barking order, but it's not true cooperation, it's not true listening. And think about listening as us listening to them and them listening to us is a very different exercise and a very different feeling when you felt listened to and them really listening to you. So yes, wasn't that a little bit deep at the end? I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you would like more. And thanks again so much for watching. I will speak to you very soon. Bye guys.